An incredible billionaire returned after 10 years and discovered a touching, life-changing secret. Jack Thornton stood at the edge of his old farm, staring at the weathered barn that loomed before him. The memories clung to the broken siding like faded photographs. The scent of hay, the sound of laughter, and the warmth of his parents' embrace. Yet here he was, a stranger, cloaked in designer wear and a reputation that felt like a costume. When he'd left this quaint Midwestern town for the tech paradise of Silicon Valley, his heart had tugged, but ambition had drowned out the voices of those he loved. The call about his father's illness had dragged him back, but not without the burden of guilt for every missed Thanksgiving, every childhood birthday forgotten. Yet as he stepped into the community he'd once called home, he discovered that his success, his wealth, was an exile's badge. Jack felt their eyes upon him. The familiar faces now looked like distant scavengers eyeing a prize. At the high school reunion, whispers swirled. Jack the billionaire felt like a painful accusation instead of a badge of honor. They were the roots he had torn from the earth to chase a dream that now felt hollow. Questions gnawed at him. Who was he now? Just an outsider masquerading in the carefully crafted wealth that had ultimately left him void within. "Meet me at the community center." A text from Sarah popped up on his phone, igniting a mixture of anxiety and hope. A childhood friend whose compassion for others had flourished in his absence, Sarah had always exemplified everything he admired about small-town life. But could he really face the truth of his decisions in front of those who remained? Those whose sacrifices had lingered in his periphery. His heart raced as he approached the center. The walls seemed to ripple with a strange energy, a blend of nostalgia and resentment. Yet as he listened to Sarah recount the journey for resources to keep the barn upright, a deeper wound opened. His parents, the hard-working farmers who had poured their lives into the soil, had sold the farm to pay for his education. The reality struck like a thunderbolt. His success had driven a wedge through their aspirations. His mind spiraled. Had every achievement been built on their broken dreams? Jack's hands clenched as unease coursed through him. What had become of the loving family who fished for stars between hard labors? Each revelation wrapped around his heart like barbed wire, drawing blood even as he tried to understand. He was wealth personified among those who had sweat to stay afloat, each interaction sharpening the division he wished to bridge. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jack's thoughts turned back to the heirloom they had hidden away, a family artifact, a promise to preserve the past. Could unearthing this treasure pan out a path toward healing? The thought ignited determination, but also a tremor of fear. What if he failed? Or worse, what if he discovered more truths than he intended to? Standing there, his breath caught, Jack faced the rising tide of his confusion. He stood on the precipice, the vast chasm between his life of affluence and connections to the community that had once nurtured him. As the decision loomed, Sarah's voice beckoned him back, declaring they had found something extraordinary, something that could redefine everything Jack thought he understood. It felt electric, but it also struck him with anxiety. What had they unearthed? The combination of longing, regret, and fear coursed through him, hanging thick and palpable. Jack felt the weight of the past, an unresolved yearning tearing at his insides, leading to a crossroads from which there might be no escape. He was running out of time. Realizations flooded him as he stood, uncertainty swirling. The answers awaited, but so too did the risk of truths too heavy to bear. Would he be prepared for what lay on the other side of this revelation? Jack's breath steadied, the air thick with tension, as he turned to Sarah, who was approaching with a small, weathered box cradled in her hands. The sight of it made his stomach twist. It seemed to pulse with the weight of untold stories. She knelt beside him, a determined glimmer in her eyes that contrasted sharply with the ghost of his past haunting him. "What's in there?" Jack ventured, his voice barely above a whisper, as if fearing the answer could unleash something he wasn't ready to confront. "Only one way to find out," she replied, her tone both playful and serious. She opened the box, revealing an assortment of photographs, letters, and mementos that spoke volumes about the lives his parents had led, their hopes entwined in every delicate fold of paper and fading image. Each artifact felt like a windshield to an era he had turned his back on, an era that felt both familiar and foreign. As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows over the remnants of his former life, Jack combed through the contents. A postcard from a family vacation, the laughter captured in the smiles. A faded letter praising Jack's achievements, words now tinged with a sorrow he hadn't deciphered when he'd last read them. Each object unveiled fragments of the innocence he once possessed, and the dreams his parents had nurtured in his absence. "What are you thinking?" Sarah's voice broke through his reverie, coaxing him out of the abyss of nostalgia and regret. Her concern was palpable, rooting him back into the present moment. But Jack felt trapped in a whirlpool of emotions. He was a far cry from the uber-successful businessman he presented himself to be. What if all his accomplishments were just a facade, a way to compensate for the guilt that now resided within him? He had chased accolades that felt empty, accolades that had cost him everything that mattered. "Can you ever go back to who you were?" he questioned out loud, the existential weight of his words drawing a heavy silence. "To do right by them?" "Yes, you can." Sarah's response was resolute, laden with conviction. "It's never too late to make things right, Jack. They sacrificed so much for you. Instead of running away, you can honor that. You can choose to build something meaningful for them, for yourself, for your future." Her steadfast belief flickered a spark of hope within him. What would it look like to transform this wealth into something that mattered? An opportunity to give back, to reinvest in the community that raised him, to fight for the spirit that his parents had instilled. But how could he bridge the chasm that his ambition had widened? As Jack mulled over the possibilities, he felt a swelling sense of responsibility sink deep into his bones. If he nurtured this reflection, could he turn his mistakes into a foundation for renewal? Yet the paradox loomed large. Could wealth born from his emotional neglect sprout branches of compassion? The rustle of paper distracted him, pulling his gaze back to Sarah, who was now holding a letter addressed to him. "This was meant for you to read. Your mother wanted you to know something important." A lump formed in Jack's throat, the sense of unease mixing with a fervent curiosity. What hidden truths lay within those penned lines? The weight of history bore down on him. He was no longer just a beneficiary of wealth. He craved connection, authenticity, redemption. "Jack, are you ready?" Sarah's voice broke through, pushing him closer to the edge of this new chapter. The letters beckoned him. They held the potential for clarity and transformation. As he took the letter from her trembling hands, anticipation collided with anxiety, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment that would change everything. What wisdom awaited him in those words, and how would it reshape his understanding of self? As he prepared to read, the shadows of doubt still lingered in the recesses of his mind. Would he be brave enough to confront what lay ahead, or would he retreat once again? With the first stroke of the letter's ink beneath his fingertips, Jack realized that discovering the truth might just be the last step he needed to finally reconcile the man he had become with the boy he had once been. Jack felt the textured paper crinkle slightly under his fingers as he opened the letter, its age and the emotion entwined in each fold, resonating with his own internal struggle. He took a deep breath, bleak memories swirling around like autumn leaves caught in the wind. As the initial words began to unfold on the page, he noticed his heart pressing against his ribcage, a frantic cadence urging him forward. "Dear Jack," the letter began, in his mother's handwriting, neat yet imbued with warmth. "If you're reading this, I can only hope that life has led you back to where your heart feels at home. I want you to know that every decision we made as parents was out of love for you, and belief in the man you'd become." With each sentence, layers of guilt, missed connections, and years of estrangement began to peel away. Her words became a mirror reflecting not only his past, but the potential for a future. His mind drifted toward the image of her, the sacrifices she made, and the conversations left unspoken. Had he truly understood her dreams for him? "Every achievement you acquired, every accolade, was important, but never more than love," he read, and the world around him blurred until it narrowed to just the letter. "You have always had a unique ability to connect with others. That's your true strength. I've seen you light up a room with a simple smile, to instill hope in those who needed it most. Remember, Jack, wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the impact you have on the lives of others." The realization struck him with electric clarity. Had he buried that part of himself in pursuit of success? In his drive, had he lost the warmth of human connection, the empathy his parents had nurtured in him? Jack's eyes stung with unshed tears, and he fought to regain composure as he read on, astonished by the guidance woven into her words. "Look for ways to invest in the community you turned away from," she continued, "and the paths you thought were lost will reveal themselves again. Choose compassion over competition, connection over isolation." He paused. The implications of her words toppled over him like an avalanche. A flood of realizations surged through his mind, visions of ways he could impact lives, ways he could rekindle a sense of belonging, to not merely exist in isolation, but to be of service. Could he transform the very fortune that had become a burden into a legacy of benevolence? After reading, Jack looked up at Sarah, his internal chaos simmering now with newfound resolve. "My mom believed in the power of connections," he said. "She viewed wealth on a deeper level. I can't keep running from my past. I need to do something meaningful." Sarah nodded softly, encouragement sparkling in her eyes. "Then let's start now. We can create a path together." Fueled by a burgeoning purpose, Jack envisioned vivid projects blooming across his old neighborhood. Mentoring programs, scholarships for deserving students, community spaces that fostered creativity. The ideas poured forth like a river unchained from a dam, each more ambitious than the last. This was his chance, he realized, a redirection of his talents towards something greater than personal gain. Yet, alongside the wave of potential, fear lingered. Fear of failure, fear of not being taken seriously by those he once overlooked, fear that the past would hold him back just as he tried to take 2 steps forward. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fiery orange and red, Jack felt the weight lift off him. At that moment, he knew that while the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, it was a journey he needed to embark upon, both for his parents and for himself. But what if his aspirations met resistance from those who thrived on his former lifestyle? The thought gnawed at him. "Jack, are you ready?" Sarah questioned again, this time a quiet challenge rippling through her words. He shared a look with her, appreciation and uncertainty mingling in the silence. To face the truth is one thing, but to confront my past, will I be strong enough? That question lingered heavily in the air, creating an electrifying mix of anticipation and dread. The moment had come for him to step into the light, but it would require facing down those who had shaped him, both negatively and positively. As he steeled himself for the next phase of his journey, he grasped the letter tightly, grounded by his mother's unwavering faith, even as shadows of what awaited danced in the corners of his mind. It wasn't just about rediscovering who he was. This was about confronting the echoes of his past and reclaiming his identity. The true test was just on the horizon, and Jack felt the urgency calling him. Would he have the courage to transition from the life he had built for himself to the life he was destined to embrace? Jack stood at the threshold of his former neighborhood, an expanse of pavement shimmering faintly under the waning sunlight. The faint echoes of laughter and street chatter reverberated in his memory, but all he felt was the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Once, this place had felt like a prison. Now it presented itself as a canvas, awaiting strokes of transformation, inhabited by the ghosts of his past. With each step, a cocktail of anxiety and hope surged within him. He had emerged from years of self-imposed isolation, shielded by layers of success, and now sought connection. But with the rekindling of old ties came a barrage of flashbacks, ambitions that had driven him away, unsaid words, and faces he had long neglected. Would they greet him with open arms or scorn him for abandoning his roots? Sarah walked beside him, her presence a guiding light in the dimming day. "What's running through your mind?" she asked, breaking the silence that tangled their thoughts. "I can't shake the feeling that some people won't understand," Jack admitted, his voice low, battlegrounds of self-doubt rising anew. Who I want to be was different from who I want to be now. They might only see the money and the reputation. Then show them the changes you've made," Sarah countered, her eyes narrowed in determination. "You can't erase your history, but you can build your future on it. Let them see the real you." That idea, once a mere whisper in his mind, began to solidify as he took in the familiar sights. A cracked basketball hoop leaned against a rusted backboard. Children's laughter floated from a nearby park, and the faint scent of grilled burgers wafted through the air, mingling with nostalgia. Jack had walked away from this, but now he sensed the echoes of his mother's words urging him not to turn his back again. Suddenly, a thought ignited within him. Why not start with a community event, he proposed, images of lively gatherings blooming in his mind. We could offer free workshops or classes, something practical and meaningful. Sarah's eyes glimmered with excitement. "That's perfect! You've got so much knowledge and experience to share. It could genuinely make a difference." Jack's heart raced at the prospect, but soon the doubt crept back in. What if no one showed up? What if they dismissed his efforts as nothing but a publicity stunt? With every avenue of hope, fear threatened to stifle his newfound ambition. He let out a steadying breath, the cool evening air filling his lungs as he forced himself to move forward. "We'll need to gather support, connect with local leaders, find volunteers. I'll need to be strategic." "Good. Focus on building relationships," Sarah urged. "This isn't just about you. It's about revival. You're creating opportunities, not just for you, but for everyone who feels like they don't belong." Steeped in thought, Jack's mind shifted to the specifics of the event. Colors, banners, music, everything that could reflect warmth and community spirit swirled before him. But with those visions came the gnawing voice of skepticism, harsh and relentless. What if his past decisions cast them away from him instead of drawing them closer? In the days that followed, Jack found himself immersed in preparations. He reached out to various individuals, local business owners, and former classmates. The tentative friendships of yesteryear brought back to life, yet riddled with insecurity. No matter how he framed his efforts, deep down, doubt lingered like a shadow. Those conversations, filled with tentative optimism and veiled suspicion, began to expose cracks in his armor. Old acquaintances questioned his motives, their skepticism a bitter reminder of the chasm he had once embraced.
Still, each moment of confrontation reinforced the gravity of his mission and his ability to transcend the isolation to which he had confined himself for too long. One afternoon, while finalizing plans at a local diner, he noticed a familiar face walking in. A childhood friend, Mark, whose eyes widened in shock upon recognizing Jack. "Jack, is that really you?" Mark's voice carried disbelief, yet underlined with curiosity. Jack's pulse quickened. At the opening, this
Was his chance. "I'm back, Mark. I'm here to change things, to change myself. Can we talk?" The words tumbled out, yet even as he spoke, a myriad of questions unfurled within him. Would Mark see beyond Jack's billionaire facade? Would he understand the journey toward humility and purpose? As they settled into a booth, Jack felt the electric tension in the air, a sharp mix of anticipation and apprehension. What revelation awaited him in this conversation? The dialogue, which could very well change the course of his efforts, began to unfold. And there it was, the moment of truth glimmering on the horizon, leaving Jack to wonder if he truly had the fortitude to confront the ghosts that lingered in the spaces between them. Would Mark be a bridge to the community he longed to reconnect with, or a reminder of the walls he had built? The stakes had never felt higher. As they settled into their booth, Jack felt the familiar rush of adrenaline fluttering in his chest. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, not since the days when he was trying to claw his way up the corporate ladder. This time, however, it wasn't about business deals or closing contracts. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and a longing to reconnect with who he once was. "Jack, it's been, 10 years?" Mark's casual tone failed to hide the surprise in his eyes. "I heard you were doing well, but I didn't expect to see you here, in this diner of all places." The decor was unchanged, the worn-out vinyl seats bringing Jack back to chaotic high school lunches. "Yeah, I've been away, chasing a dream that ultimately felt hollow." He forced a casualness he didn't possess, as he pointedly avoided the topic of his wealth, but his eyes flickered with latent ambition. "But I'm back now, and I want to make a difference here. I want to share what I've learned." Mark's brow furrowed. "What are you planning?" Jack hesitated, grappling with the enormity of his intentions. The weight of his past, his identity as a billionaire, loomed large. "I want to hold workshops, teach skills that might help people in our community." "Workshops?" Mark echoed skeptically. "What do you know about that?" Frustration bubbled within Jack, but he quelled it. This was marked territory, a reminder of how he had distanced himself from this world. "I've built companies, managed teams. I've got lessons to share, experience that's worth something. But I'm not just looking to impart knowledge. I want to learn from others, too." Mark's sharp gaze scrutinized him, debating whether he should grant Jack the benefit of the doubt or dismiss him outright. "People aren't just going to trust you because you say you want to help. You've been away for too long." Jack's composure shook as he fought against the rising tide of vulnerability. But Mark's words rang true, like a bell echoing through a vacant room. "I know, I'm prepared for that, but I could really use your help, Mark. I need someone who knows this community and can help me navigate it." For a heartbeat, the diner was still. Mark's expression shifted, revealing compassion, but also wariness. The unspoken history between them was palpable, woven intricately with shared childhood dreams and diverging adult realities. "What's truly motivating this, Jack?" Mark questioned, his tone softening. "Why now?" Jack leaned back slightly, arms crossed, as he weighed his response with care. How could he articulate something so complex? "I lost myself in a pursuit of wealth and status. I achieved things, but abandoned what mattered to me, my roots, my friends. I've realized that the number on my bank statement doesn't define my worth. I want to rebuild what I shattered." Silence fell. Jack felt each second stretching like an elastic band, taut with expectancy. Mark's eyes searched his, trying to decipher the sincerity behind Jack's words. "People don't just forget the past like that," he remarked. Can you really commit to this? That question pulled at Jack's core. Was commitment even possible after vanishing for so long? The gulf between aspiration and reality shimmered before him, inciting fear, but also a flicker of determination. He didn't just want to prove himself to Mark, he needed to prove it to himself. "I'm all in, Mark," he asserted, his voice steadier now. "But I need to start somewhere. Will you help me find that beginning?" Mark paused, contemplating the proposition. There was a harsh beauty in the truth of their past, the stark divisions of Jack's wealthy shelter versus Mark's lived experience in their hometown, where decisions bore heavy consequences. At that moment, a glimmer of respect sparked in Mark's eyes, an acknowledgement of Jack's bravery in facing his past. "I'll help you," he finally replied, albeit cautiously. "But it's going to take time for people to come around. You'll need to earn their trust back." Jack nodded. That journey lay ahead, fraught with challenges, but also potential to ignite change within himself and the community. As they discussed ideas, a new energy engulfed him, drowning out the shadow of doubt that had once clouded his mind. But just as Jack allowed himself to feel the thrill of possibility surge through him, another thought struck him with force. Was Mark merely a stepping stone toward redemption, or would he become a link to the very community Jack had once abandoned? He stole a glance at Mark's worn face. It held a myriad of answers that could forge the path ahead. Their gaze locked, and Jack felt the weight of his decision reverberate through the diner, where echoes of the past lean heavily against the promise of the future. But in that space, uncertainty lingered, giving rise to the pivotal question: was he truly ready for the consequences that might follow? The moment felt charged, the air thick with unspoken truths begging to surface, and tension crackled between them as they ventured deeper into their conversation. What revelations awaited Jack in this raw exchange, and could they transform his past burdens into bricks for rebuilding anew? Jack's determination mingled with an undercurrent of anxiety, snaking through his thoughts as he and Mark exchanged ideas. Each suggestion felt like a tentative step on unfamiliar grounds. Could he truly offer value to those who had once looked at him with admiration, but could now only see an outsider? A peculiar cocktail of nostalgia and guilt enveloped him. "What kind of skills did you have in mind?" Mark asked, pushing his coffee cup aside, a gesture of attention that hinted at a willingness to invest in Jack's vision. Jack breathed deeply, the air thick with potential. "Basic business management and financial literacy," he started. "I could also lead sessions on developing soft skills, like negotiation and communication. Everyone could benefit from being able to articulate their ideas clearly, right?" Mark nodded slowly. "Those are important, but what about bringing something more personal to the table? People might connect more with real stories, ones that have emotion behind them." A jolt of realization surged through Jack. Stories. Could he reveal the raw edges of his journey? There lay strength in sharing his failures alongside his successes, a complex tapestry reflecting not just victory, but also the heavy toll of ambition. "I'm not sure people want to hear from someone who floundered in wealth," he replied, vulnerability wrapping around his voice. "Maybe not at first," Mark said thoughtfully, "but authenticity resonates. You have to be willing to reveal yourself, Jack. You'll need to show that you understand both sides of the coin." The insight struck him. Beneath the layers of confidence he had built from years in boardrooms lay the fragments of doubt he had masked with bravado. Perhaps this would be his turning point. The journey he envisioned was not just about teaching, it was about healing. As the conversation turned toward logistics, Jack's mind raced. He couldn't ignore the tightness in his throat as he considered an upcoming challenge. He would have to confront the past, old peers who might not understand his new mission, or worse, those who might confront him with accusations of abandonment. Gripping the edge of the booth, Jack thought about his old associations, the elite circles steeped in competition. It was terrifying to confront the notion that he may have to prove himself to them, not only to Mark or the community he wished to engage with, but also to the ghosts lingering from his former life. "Jack, are you still with me?" Mark's voice interrupted his spiraling thoughts, a soft laughter escaping him as he leaned forward. "You look like you're about to wrestle a bear or something." "Maybe I am," Jack half-joked, though the gravity of the moment loomed over him. His emotions often felt more taxing than the business strategies he used to navigate so smoothly. This felt personal. The stakes were greater than any deal he'd ever made. They delved deeper into potential workshop titles, objectives, and where to hold them. The more they planned, the more Jack realized the true challenge lay not in the workshops themselves, but in facing those he would once again encounter. Would his sincerity resonate, or would old wounds fester anew? Mark's earlier words echoed in Jack's mind. This had to be heartfelt. It had to be real. As they wrapped up their brainstorming session, Jack couldn't shake the disquieting thoughts that clouded his mind. "Can I really do this?" he asked, exhaling sharply and intertwining his fingers in an anxious dance. "Only you know that," Mark replied, the weight of expectation mirrored in his gaze. "But if you want to connect, you'll need to put in the work. Your past is one thing, but it's how you handle your present that will define your future." Their meeting adjourned, and Jack felt the tiredness of self-doubt creeping back in, entrenching itself in his thoughts. Could he genuinely face his old life while simultaneously constructing an image of the man he wanted to be? The uncertainties loomed like dark clouds ready to unleash a storm. As Jack stepped out of the diner, the air felt charged, almost electrifying. Each step was a reminder of the path he had chosen, a commitment he had made not just to Mark, but to himself. Still, the thrill of facing his peers threatened to overwhelm him at any moment. The past wouldn't go quietly. Would the risk he was prepared to take lead to true redemption, or would it crumble beneath the burden of his decisions? With that thought clinging to him, Jack resolved to return to the community that had shaped him, ready or not. Tomorrow would come with its trials, but it would also offer opportunities. The question now was how far he was willing to push and what challenges it would unveil along the way. As he walked away, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. This wasn't just about rebuilding his life. It was also about salvaging relationships and reconnecting with who he truly was. But what he couldn't ignore was the unnerving flicker of doubt that whispered in the darkness. What if redemption came at a steeper price than he had anticipated? The morning sun filtered through the blinds as Jack prepared for his first workshop, casting long shadows that mirrored his lingering uncertainty. Dressed in a crisp shirt, he swiped at the beads of sweat forming on his brow, the fabric clinging to him as a tangible reminder of the pressure he felt. He paced his small apartment, rehearsing his opening lines in an attempt to quell the rising tide of anxiety. "Remember, it's about connection," he muttered to himself, but each repetition felt hollow against the weight of his internal monologue. Stories. Mark's words circled his thoughts incessantly, demanding acknowledgement. Yet self-doubt clamped down on his throat like a vice. Did he have anything of real significance to share? In a world accustomed to polished successes and flashy narratives, where did his vulnerability fit? The clock ticked down the minutes, each tick amplifying his heartbeat, mingling with the sounds of New York awakening outside. He thought back to his former life, the towering buildings, the endless meetings, and the fleeting friendships. Those memories flickered like an indecipherable film reel, reminders of a life that felt both distant and claustrophobic. What would they think of him now? Would the echoes of his past successes clarify his current mission, or would they serve only to highlight his failings? Arriving at the venue, he was surprised to see a modest gathering awaiting him. Faces turned toward him with varying degrees of recognition, curiosity mixed with skepticism. Among them, he spotted several familiar ones, former colleagues whose gazes pierced through him as if transcending years. They seemingly judged the man standing before them against the tycoon they once knew. Drawing a steadying breath, he approached the podium, his palms clammy against the smooth surface. As he began to speak, the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Years of conviction in boardrooms now stripped away. Instead of launching into the rehearsed content, he opted to share a story, a moment of candid vulnerability. 10 years ago, I stood on the pinnacle of success. Jack said, his voice tightening as he felt the story emerge. But I was lost, trapped in a cycle of ambition that blurred the lines between achievement and happiness. I didn't see the relationships I left behind, the dreams I sacrificed. He paused, feeling the weight of every word tug at him. I floundered in the illusion that wealth equated to worth. Silence enveloped the room. Eyes widened, and he could almost hear the collective intake of breath. For a moment, he questioned the choice to reveal so much. But the connection he sought was tethered to this honesty. The rawness intensified the air, layered with unspoken understandings and shared struggles. Gradually, he transitioned toward the workshop's objectives: financial literacy, communication skills, the importance of resilience. But through it all, he wove in threads of personal truth, interspersing the curriculum with elements of storytelling. The responses from the audience morphed from skeptical to engaged. People began nodding, their interest piqued by the story's humanity. At the workshop's end, unexpected conversations bloomed. A woman approached him, eyes damp with unspoken pain. "Your story reminded me that vulnerability can be a path to strength," she said, surprising him. The conversation that followed was raw and enlightening, leading to discussions on careers lost and dreams newly resurrected. However, as gratitude poured in, amidst the praise loomed a voice of apprehension that had remained silent until now. Was this truly the beginning of his redemption? Had he merely scratched the surface, or was he destined to dredge up more from his own hidden depths? Jack lingered in the aftermath, absorbing every interaction, the potential for growth breathing new life into him, while old insecurities nagged relentlessly. Would he manage to maintain this momentum, or would the ghosts of his past drag him
back into shadows he had fought so hard to escape? As he gathered his things, the tension in his gut intensified. The workshop had sent ripples of change into the atmosphere, yet a deeper confrontation with his past remained. The time had come to face the looming question that dogged him each step. Could he uphold this newfound connection and confront those who had once held him in high regard? Or would he allow himself to be defined by old failures? The truth remained hidden, waiting just beyond reach, and Jack felt it pulling him closer. The elevator doors slid open with a quiet ding, and Jack stepped into the bustling hall of his former company. The familiar polished marble floors and steel accents felt more like a gauntlet than a reminder of his past success. He was not the titan they remembered. He was a man reshaping his identity, questioning his values in ways he had never dared before. As he walked past office doors adorned with names that were once his peers, the trepidation in his chest morphed into something fiercer, more primal, a determination to confront. Flashes of conversations from the workshop floated in his mind, people's faces filled with empathy as they shared their vulnerabilities. Yet the thought of facing his old colleagues sent shivers down his spine. Their opinions weighed heavily against his self-worth. Would they see a failure, or would they acknowledge the complexity of his journey? In his mind, he crafted scenarios of the reunion. Would there be pity, judgment, or perhaps an understanding that extended beyond the corporate greed they once shared? As he settled into an unused conference room, memories swirled like autumn leaves against the backdrop of the ongoing hustle outside. He observed through the glass. A vibrant energy buzzed amidst chatter about revenue reports and strategic goals. Ah, the life he had lived, but at what cost? His heart pounded as he opened his laptop. This initial meeting would be more than just a courtesy call. It was a reckoning. He typed up a draft for an email addressing his former team, half of him eager to put himself out there, while the other half screamed to retreat. Yet he was here to claim his new narrative, a tale of self-discovery, not merely of economic accomplishments. Subject: a new approach to old connections. Those words felt like the first chisel against a block of granite. What did he want to convey? That he was still capable? That he had learned from his mistakes? He wrestled with his own motivations, doubting if it was hubris to believe anyone would care. Each keystroke reverberated with the echoes of his insecurities, and he hesitated. Was it his true self he wanted them to see, or simply an illusion crafted for acceptance? After a long pause, he pressed send. Relief swept through him, though it was quickly marred by a creeping anxiety. Would they respond? If they did, would it be dismissively or with intrigue? Yet the act of confronting his past, a once feared confrontation, had given him unexpected strength. The thought began to bloom. Perhaps he could help others, like the woman from the workshop who found healing in vulnerability. Encouraged by this new purpose, Jack devised plans to arrange informal talks, a series of gatherings focused on self-awareness and community building, not just profits and losses. Contributing back to the very network he had once taken from felt revolutionary. This was the beginning of perhaps a real transformation, a chance to reshape his value beyond numerical holdings. He closed his laptop, a rush of excitement mingling with anxiety bubbling under the surface. He could visualize the potential impact of sharing stories, navigating the challenges together, crafting a support system anew. But then a dark thought emerged. What if none of them were interested? The fear of rejection gnawed at him. What would that signify about his worth? His moment of hope collided with uncertainty. Would the acceptance he yearned for remain just out of reach? As the minutes slipped by, the thought of standing before his former peers loomed large. Who would welcome him back, and who would look down upon his new, less polished self? The rising tension ignited a rebellion in him. He resolved to confront not only the faces from the past, but also the fears that weighed on him. Jack glanced at his phone. There was a message notification. His heart raced. Was it a reply? Taking a deep breath, he opened it, and his breath caught. It was from one of his closest old colleagues, someone whose opinion mattered immensely. The message read, "Jack, I heard you're back. We need to talk." The opportunity was here, yet the question echoed louder than ever. Would he dare to share everything he had discovered about himself, even if it meant risking everything again? Jack stared at the screen. The message blinked back at him in stark clarity. We need to talk. Those words pulsed with unspoken implications. He contemplated the weight of his old colleague's intent. Did it signal support, judgment, or merely curiosity? It was clear. A confrontation loomed close, not just with his past, but with the very identity he had begun to rebuild. With a measured inhale, Jack rose from the conference room table, the polished marble reflecting his inner turmoil as he moved. The choice to engage with his former life felt like stepping onto a high wire. Every step was defined by a blend of nostalgia and fear. Would he maintain his balance or falter at the first misstep? He navigated the labyrinth of cubicles towards the conference room where they often strategized on corporate takeovers and expansions. That room still held the echoes of their laughter and debates, ambitions driving them ever forward. It was here that dreams were forged. Now it felt like an arena of ghosts, shadows of his previous self rekindling doubts he thought he had buried. The door swung open, revealing Lisa, his longtime colleague. Her gaze had the sharpness of familiarity, and her neutral expression ignited a memory of camaraderie. Jack's throat tightened as he took his seat, emotions flowing uneasily through him, relief intertwined with apprehension. "Hey, Jack," she said, the initial pleasantry clashing with the heaviness of their shared history. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it has," Jack replied, forcing a smile. "I was hoping we could catch up." Lisa leaned forward, the air heavy with unsaid questions, the tension palpable. "I've seen some changes in you since, well, you know. What are you trying to do now?" The honesty in her inquiry made him swallow hard. "I'm trying to figure that out. I've taken some time to myself to grasp not just what I want, but who I am." The weight of his truth settled into the space between them, shifting the atmosphere. "Interesting. Some of us thought you'd just vanished, become a ghost," she replied, studying him with calculating eyes. As he opened up about his recent self-discovery workshop, Jack found himself revealing facets of vulnerability he never intended to share. His insecurities, his aspirations to create a supportive narrative within their circle. Lisa absorbed his words with thoughtful pauses, her brow furrowing in reflection. "That's brave, Jack. Honestly, most people I talk to are just concerned with numbers, less about the personal anymore. It's refreshing." Her unexpected response both relieved and unnerved him. Was it genuine sentiment, or merely a reflection of the bleak corporate atmosphere? He hesitated at diving deeper into his mission. What if she dismissed it, perhaps labeled it as naive? Jack gathered his courage. "I want to propose something. Set up casual discussions around personal growth, something that extends beyond the figures and profits. We've all been through so much. I think it might help." Lisa considered, her expression shifting as she processed the idea. "It's risky, but maybe it's needed. People might be more open than you think." The spark of hope ignited within him, though quickly tempered by the realization that hope involved risk. Jack explored the possibility of turning this budding idea into real change. Could he inspire others to break free from their corporate shells and embrace their vulnerabilities too? But doubt pushed back, asking if he was truly equipped to lead this revolution, or if he would falter in executing it. "Let me think about it," Lisa finally said, the hesitation in her voice echoing his own fears. "There are a lot of people depending on traditional results." As their conversation veered towards logistical possibilities, Jack grappled with the pang of skepticism about himself. Was this merely a craving for validation manifesting itself in idealistic plans? What would happen if he failed to rally any support? As Lisa began discussing potential attendees, the knot of anxiety returned, aligning with the earlier fear of rejection. Despite the flicker of encouragement, the precariousness of vulnerability left him unmoored. When they both rose to leave, Lisa turned, her eyes searching his. "Jack, don't forget why you're doing this. It's not about them. It's about you embracing who you've become." Those words reverberated in Jack's soul as she exited, leaving him standing alone in the conference room, a whirlwind of thoughts. He had initiated a conversation, but what truly lay ahead? Would he lead others toward openness, or would this be mere ambition untouched by reality? The ripple of uncertainty intensified. As Jack stepped back into the bustling hallway, he felt the full weight of the journey unfolding before him. Would he gather the courage to continue this path, or would he retreat into the safety of anonymity once more? In that moment, he knew one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. The message that had ignited this journey echoed still. Who would he ultimately become if he dared to rise again? Jack stood in the town square, the familiar contours of his childhood fading into a newfound clarity. After weeks of uncertainty and self-doubt, he felt a solidness return. At his pivotal gathering, the air was electric with anticipation. He had molded conversations from mere dreams to actionable plans. Community workshops were coming together. They weren't just events, they were embodiments of his commitment to invest in the town that raised him. Some familiar faces peppered the crowd, others were complete strangers. Many likely curious about Jack the billionaire, but even more about Jack the person standing before them. The man he had once been, the self-oriented tech mogul, was shrinking away, replaced by a figure that dared to be vulnerable. With the community's unfiltered gaze upon him, he embraced his raw humanity, a stark contrast to the polished executive persona he had cultivated. "My journey has not been without its imperfections," he began, his voice steady yet resonant. Opening up about his past, his relentless pursuit of wealth devoid of connection crafted a bridge to the faces before him. The crowd listened as he shared anecdotes, moments when he felt lost despite his material gains.
As he revealed the weighty insights he had unearthed in his time away, he saw their eyes awaken. They too had stories lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. Gradually, the undertones of resentment transformed into something palpable: curiosity. They wanted to connect with Jack not for the accolades he had achieved, but for the lessons he had learned. Each shared story bore the ink of truth, crafting a shared narrative of struggle and resilience. With a newfound confidence, he introduced an interactive portion for the audience to express their own experiences, to explore self-exploration in tandem with his own transformative journey. The floodgates opened. A woman shared her battle with self-doubt, while a young man recounted his failed endeavors against overwhelming odds. Jack guided the exploration, weaving his experiences into their narratives, cultivating an environment where vulnerability wasn't just welcomed, it was essential. Their shared laughter and poignant silences rippled through the gathered crowd, the connection forming a mosaic from the individual stories, creating a newfound recognition of the strength within their community.
Jack saw people nodding appreciatively. He felt their acceptance washing over him, washing away more than just the cloak of wealth. Through this first workshop, he had ignited not only hope for personal and professional development, but had also reignited connections long thought extinguished. At the workshop's close, he felt renewed, recognized not as a millionaire, but for a pursuit of authenticity. Conversations flowed freely, connections being birthed. And suddenly, he was part of the very fabric of community he had once distanced himself from. Later that evening, as he sat with Sarah, she mirrored the pride he felt inside. "You did it, Jack," she said, eyes gleaming with admiration. He recalled how he had entered this town as a ghost of his own life, but now he was firmly anchored in the present. "I was terrified, Sarah, terrified of facing them, of being rejected, but I realized I needed to face my fears." "What's next?" Sarah asked, her enthusiasm infectious. "I want to create a series of workshops, not just for skills, but for support, a space for all of us to rebuild together. I want to create something sustainable," he replied, his voice gaining conviction. He envisioned initiatives that would keep the momentum alive, where collaboration flourished over competition, a heartbeat of the community beating anew. Days turned into weeks, and Jack's workshops grew, spurred by the stories they woven together. Real change began to materialize, not just in workshop attendance, but in camaraderie, as friendships formed and slowly chipped away at the isolation he had once resided in. His connection with the townspeople blossomed, a testimony to transformed relationships, and Jack felt their gratitude reflecting back, solidifying the change he sought. Weeks later, he received a message, an invitation to speak at a local entrepreneurship panel. Jack sat back, a smile tugging at his lips. He had come full circle, a true alpha, not defined by financial success, but by enriching lives. As he stepped into the spotlight, he felt solid confidence wash over him. The same people who had once eyed him through the lens of skepticism now looked at him with respect. He conveyed not merely words of financial prowess, but stories of humanity and connection. He realized that wealth was only a small part of his identity. Genuine fulfillment was now rooted in fostering connections and uplifting others. The foundation he was building, one anchored in empathy, support, and shared growth, was forged in the rich soil of his past mistakes, created for future prosperity. With the accolades he had once yearned for, what remained was a sense of belonging, marinated in compassion. Jack Thornton had transformed. He had conceived a legacy of authentic connection, and with it he reclaimed his place not just in the town, but in the entirety of his being. And now, as this chapter closed, Jack stood tall. The fears had dissipated, and the echoes of uncertainty had transformed into echoes of celebration. He was not just Jack the billionaire. He was a new Jack.
Jack of heart, purpose, and genuine achievement. To everyone out there who resonates with this story, here's your chance. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the journey going. Comment below your reactions and theories as we dive deeper into these heartfelt tales. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and spread the word. Don't wait even one more second.